All right, well, welcome everybody. And my first comment is to thank Andrew for holding the fort over the last couple of months. I did watch the videos and they covered a lot of ground, so that was all very good. It's good that they are recorded so that we can refer back to them. But there's Duncan arriving. I'll just wait while Duncan gets organised. Then we'll do a quick round of at this end. So we've got 4 people so far at this end. Bill, you're going to be lucky first. There's Roger Heap arriving. So we are starting to get a bit of a crowd going. That's good. Oh, Joe. Excellent. All right. So I think we've got some decent numbers now. We might kick off with Phil. Give us a quick update of what's happening at LMDSS. It sounds like there's some progress being made.
Okay, morning everybody in Australia and evening to all those in America and around the world and everything. The ASV, I don't know how many people are aware that we had an issue with the worm drive on that dish, which we have here in our site. It's a phosphor bronze worm drive that lifts a lead screw, and the actual phosphor is designed to be the sacrificial part, and it wore through in 4 years of use. And partly that was due to our neglect, I suppose, because we were amateurs and learning about all this stuff. The actual lead screw was pretty much left out in the weather. It collected a lot of dust, so the dust and the grease that was on that lead screw pretty much became grinding paste, we're told. And the grinding paste ground away all the phosphor bronze worm drive. So we've been in the last, it's nearly a year now, redesigning, refurbishing, and we've just reached the point now where we are reinstalling. So I'll just share with you a little Discord page that we have in our group, and I'll bring up some pictures. Can you see that picture there? Everybody? Yep. Yeah, good. Yeah, so this is Mitch, one of our dedicated volunteers in our group. He's actually a builder, but he's a frustrated tool maker from what I can tell. He's actually helped rebuild the worm drive that goes on this tilting plate, and that tilting plate with all of its motors and gear need to go up the lead screw. And he's been instrumental in making devices so that we can lift it up safely. Here's a spot, that one there. So that's the lead screw just about to get put into the what we call the plumber block at the top. And we lifted it up with our block and tackle, and it just screwed in straight away. There was no challenge to get it in, which has been really great. This round disc that you can see at the top of the lead screw, that's one of our new designs to add a bellows onto the lead screw to stop dust getting onto the grease and everything. So this is all Mitch's work and everything. Once we got the lead screw up, we then mounted the motor underneath. Can we zoom in there? No, okay. So there's a motor in under here with what we call the wedding cake. It's a gearbox, the actual phosphor bronze gears and everything in under here. And you can see this plate that we've put in underneath. That's to add a bellows for the bottom half of the lead screw. So we raised this up onto a trolley, which you can see in that picture there, a little trolley underneath. placed it underneath the lead screw, winched it up, and then we used, funnily enough, just a basic battery drill to turn this worm drive to raise it up the actual lead screw. So right now we've got the whole mechanism sitting about that height. So that was last weekend. We got it nearly 2/3 the way up, and it's sitting there waiting for us to do it this weekend to finish it off and get it attached to the top. So that's our progress on the refurbishment of our lead screw. Hopefully in the next month or two, we'll actually get the motors homed again and running. And then the task is to get the radio equipment that we've redesigned, refurbished as well, and install that and have it all up and running. There's a few little bits and pieces to be done yet for all that. So it's all exciting. I've been champing at the bit for nearly a year to get to this point. So it's great to see it get there. And that's the news we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. It sounds like things are finally coming together. It's been a long story, that one.
It has.
But from my perspective, I mean, I don't barely know one end of a screwdriver from the other in terms of engineering, but it sounds like there's quite a lot of expertise within our group, our radio astronomy group, and a wider group. I think you've been able to call on a lot of people, and that's a lot of work and a lot of skills being shown. Very good work.
I will say, Paul, we are very fortunate to have radio engineers to mechanical people to people who can paint with a brush. We've got the whole gamut of people who work with us, and it really it's delightful to have a group of so many diverse people. It's really good.
Yes, very, very, and I think that's if you look at the SARA listserv and the messages coming through, I think that's reflected in a lot of this amateur radio astronomy stuff. There are a lot of people with a lot of skills. I'm a physics teacher. I'm a theoretician. As I say, well, I'm not practical in that sense, but it's really good that we do have people we can draw on. And so what do you reckon, Phil? Another month or two and we're up and running?
Optimistically a month or two, but there's one chap who's actually in Germany at the moment who's going to do some software for us, and he doesn't get back till late August, I think. So there's a bit of time after that. It'll be Christmas, I think, before we're fully up and running and doing everything right. I'm hoping we get it before then. But
I know the Northern Hemisphere members are champing at the bit for some Southern Hemisphere data, so you'll be able to supply that in the very near future. So good progress and well done all round, I would say. So moving around the Australian end, Andrew, you're the lucky next one. And again, thank you for looking after the show while I've been away. Away you go.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, I hope you had a great time. Hi, everybody. I'm champing at the bit to get back into the shed to we'll continue working on some electronics. I got the Radio Jove kind of calibration system underway. That's the one that involves the programmable noise source. Getting organized for my long wavelength antenna broadband test. Starting to get some gear together for that, and very impressed by all of the neutral hydrogen work that's been online. I've seen quite a bit of that, and of course the comment about Southern Hemisphere observations. There was an interesting comment about whether we could see the Magellanic Clouds in neutral hydrogen. I think it's quite possible to see that, so I'm looking forward. I've still haven't finalised my disk patch feed system, but that's another bit of a project. But continuing on with my solar observations. So here's a few slides of late on the sun. And hopefully you can now see a sort of spectra there. At the last meeting, there was an interesting solar event that happened while we're actually just at the end of the meeting, and that is shown here in the top left of this slide here, and there's my mouse is just having a little bit of trouble catching up with me, I think. We've got a broadband spectrum there, 0 to 50 megahertz from my system on the left, top left, showing an interesting burst coming through, and that actually went to quite low frequencies. So we're seeing that down below 30 megahertz, and the ionospheric cutoff at the time for me was around about 28 megahertz. So a bit surprising again to see that low frequency. But on the upper right there, we've got a spectrum at the same time from the Owens Valley Radio Observatory. You can go online and compare your observations with what they're recording. They've got hourly spectra during the day, and there's a bit of an overlap between Eastern Australia and the US for solar observations, as well as Jupiter. Down the bottom, a spectra, or a couple of spectra from spacecraft in interplanetary space. Stereo A is one of the spacecraft that's reasonably close to the Earth. It's about, I think it's now about 16 degrees ahead of the Earth, and that's got a low frequency radio astronomy package on it. There are a number of other spacecraft. You can go to the Parker web page to look at spectra daily from that, again, to compare with your observations. I guess the interesting thing about this event here, which is shown kind of towards the end of the UT day on the 21st, is that it goes to quite low frequencies and persists for quite some time. So that's the second of the events there, and that's going down to 100 kilohertz or so. That's the advantage of being in interplanetary space, where you can see the solar type 3 emission, plasma emission in the solar wind. And one of the other interesting things is that here you can see the sun's pretty active. This is quite a sensitive system, and throwing out lots of radio emission all through the day there, which you wouldn't see on the Earth, mainly because of the ionospheric cutoff. But yeah, so that's it's always kind of interesting to compare your observations with what other folks are seeing, and so that was an interesting one. Hopefully my slide will advance. That sounds like my dog's getting a bit excited out there. Another event that happened a few days later captured some fine structure, and that's always quite interesting, looking at these fast drifting narrowband bursts. So this is up around 39 megahertz, and the scale up the side there, that's in seconds, 16 seconds. So reasonably slow drifting for some of these. So these are probably type 3B type bursts, but always good to catch some fine structure. I've been recording some in-phase and quadrature raw data, and trying to look at some of the really fine structure. You can do a Fourier analysis on that, and depending on how much bandwidth you've got, I'm getting a few milliseconds and a few kilohertz. There's the time bandwidth trade-off. You kind of have to trade resolution and frequency for resolution in time, but you can get down to quite fine detail. Of course, logging a lot of that data, it's quite disk intensive, so you only do it when you need to. And then just more recently, an event, another sort of really bright burst from the sun. This was actually during a really minor flare, and so some of the really tiny flares actually in X-ray can produce some quite strong emission. and is a sort of a composite of a few different types of observations. My 0 to 50 megahertz spectrum there. Again, another interesting thing about this flare is that normally my -3 cutoff at this time would be about 25 megahertz, but I'm seeing it down to around about 14. And so I'm doing a bit of analysis to try and understand for myself why I'm seeing some of these bursts to low frequency. I think it's the fact that I've probably got an E layer at the time and getting some refraction around the lower ionosphere there. Top right there, I have a radiometer at 142 megahertz, and I'm picking off the signal also at 15 or so megahertz on this occasion. And it's always interesting seeing the delay between the two frequencies. Bottom left is a bit of detail on the lower part of that burst, and that's from essentially my radio Jove type observation, still looking out for Jupiter, which is getting better in the sky at the moment. And the bottom right there, I do run a Doppler measurement of WWVH and WWV, which is good for picking up sudden frequency deviations from these flares. So the extreme ultraviolet emission causes the ionosphere to be birefringent and shifts the frequency of the signal, and that's kind of interesting to see these events. One good thing about monitoring WWV in particular for me is that I can pick up solar flares during the nighttime here, because the path to Colorado can be in daylight, so you can actually pick up some of these. I'm hoping to actually one day see a bright gamma ray burst do something here, but that might be pie in the sky, given I think we've had our good gamma ray burst for the century, perhaps. But auroras also perturbed this Doppler measurement as well, so it's kind of interesting to see that too. So that's it from me. That's where I'll get that to stop sharing.
My overall comment. Sorry.
Wrestle back my mouse here. Seems to have gone a little bit haywire.
Yeah, you've got a little bit of a delay on
Yep.
those screen grabs were slow coming up as well.
Yep.
Sounds like it might be time for a reboot. Thank you, Andrew. My general comment was nothing much gets past Andrew. You seem to be monitoring just about everything that's going on, and that's all very valuable. I would have thought in general terms to see what's going on. Talking of the the aurora of the century, of course, I missed the whole thing. Well, I was very annoyed. I was in Siena at the time in Italy, and there was stuff coming through on the listservs and in Facebook and so on. And I'm in Brighton, in Melbourne. The bay is literally, less than a kilometre down from here. And that was a really, really good place to be looking, because it's basically looking south and looking away from the city. And apparently the beach road on that evening and the following evening was just chockers. There was no parking at all. Everyone was down lining up along the beach, hoping to see aurora. I think a lot of people were surprised that they didn't see very much naked eye, that in fact it's you need the integration that a camera is going to do for you. But it created quite a stir at this end. Meanwhile, I was totally oblivious to all this in Siena, enjoying Italian food and wine and so on, but missing the aurora of the century. So, well, there might be another one. Who knows? All right, thanks, Andrew. That's great stuff coming through there. Len, you are next on my screen, and Len has joined the group since I was last with you all. So, Len, if you wanted to give a quick overview, you've probably told others who you are and so on, but
Yeah, Oh,
just
thanks, Paul. And it's great to be with everyone today. And it's my second meeting. I suppose last time I spoke, I was, wrestling with the mechanical construction of the dish and the feed. But I've solved all that, and I might just share quickly. Um, so so this is the current feed I'm using. It's I've taken off the choke. I just had too much mechanical issues, so I thought I'd just connect the feed directly, and then I did a bit of quick focusing. And my first observation was in the morning yesterday, and I just had it pointed at zenith, and I got a bit of the galaxy, morning galaxy, and then I did it in the evening. So the morning I got this. This was a snapshot, and I did a scan, and that's the scan. And then the evening I got even better. I got 2.5 hours of scanning, and I managed to get that. So I can quickly also just show you as the scan progressed last night, that's what I was getting. And that's the contour plot, and that's the sort of the image that I got. Yeah, so it's working after months of putting this thing together. So now I can focus on getting the positioning sort of relative to the sky. I've got a inertial unit on it to do the ASL sort of measurements, and I can start scanning and perhaps doing more calibration and focusing, getting that better. So that's me.
Very good, thanks, Len. Len is just down the road from me. Len, did you get out to see the?
No, I was interstate at the time, but
okay.
Yeah.
Another one who missed it.
Yeah, it'll be good to have you around sometime, Paul. Since we're just
I
neighbours.
think we're about 5K apart or something like that. Right. We've never met.
Yes.
I mean, most of the people on the screen I have never met, Joe and Phil, but no one else. It's quite funny, really, in that sense. So, I mean, Andrew and I have been communicating for a long, long time. But one day, Andrew, I'll get down your way and check out your place. And Len, you're that bit closer. Certainly, I'll come down and have a look. I wonder what your neighbours think of the dish sitting there.
They were curious at first, and I had to design it so it wouldn't be too visible from their property. So it doesn't have a great view of the sky, but I put it on a 2-meter plinth, and so it'll get enough of the galaxy for my purposes.
And is that what we can see out of your window?
Yes, that's it at the moment. Yeah. 2.4 meter XC-band dish. So I will look at other frequencies as well in the future, and I'd be interested in pulsar work. So yeah, and one day put a drive on it.
Very good. Yeah, well, that's progress. You're actually getting some readings there, and I like the animations. I think that those animations really show what's going on.
I use MATLAB, so I can do a fair bit of. It's easy to do post-processing using MATLAB, and I gather the data with MATLAB as well, so it's just very quick and easy.
Well, we look forward to more data and animations from you in the near future.
Thanks, Paul. Len, looked like you have good signal to noise there, so that's pretty encouraging. And as that animation flipped through, it looked like you had another little source that sort of popped up briefly.
Yeah, I've got to look carefully at what I'm getting. So the I have filtered that data, but I integrate over 3 minutes, and so that helps. And then I take out any narrowband sort of sources out of that, so there's no spikes. And then I just for the viewing, I pass it through a filter. But it is good SNR, which you'd expect with I've got a Sawbird filter on it. I do the calibration. I take out the background. I did a calibration of with the night sky with no Milky Way, and I found I had to wait a fair while for everything to get to temperature, and then I did a few calibrations and then get the average, and then I used that as I used that, and then to do these animations, I take out the mean, so it just sits right. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Very good. Excellent. I wasn't able to do any radio astronomy, obviously traveling in Italy and UK. But I did try some optical astronomy, and that's really, really hard when you're so far north, particularly I was up in Scotland and northern England, and it doesn't get dark till, well, it never gets dark really in terms of optical astronomy. I did wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning one day and go out with the phone to get some pictures, but even then the sky was still light. Very, very hard to do optical astronomy under those conditions.
Hey,
All right. Yeah.
Just on that, there's been quite a lot of noctilucent cloud activity
Yes.
seen from, well, US and Europe. Did you happen to see any of those?
No, I have to say, as I say, it's just really the sky is just too light, and I'm not sure that I'd even recognise noctilucent. I'd have to have a think about what I was looking at. It really is very difficult. I don't know how historically, when there have been some very famous British astronomers, optical astronomers, and they must just get up in the middle of the night or do all their observations in winter or something. I'm not quite sure how it all works, but it was a bit frustrating. I wanted to get some northern hemisphere constellations, get some pictures of those, but I did manage to get Cassiopeia and Ursa Major, but against a very, very light background, so not very convincing at all. So moving around the screen, Duncan, you're next. You're the lucky one. What have you been up to?
I've been up to monitoring the Vela pulsar. Group I work with. We submitted a paper to PASA about small detectors and the system I used. Basically aimed towards STEM students. We still haven't, so and at the moment I'm trying to get 2 of the very cheap SDRs to phase lock and see if I can make them run in tandem. So yeah, and there's a few little anomalies that from the data set that I'm looking into, which I haven't quite resolved yet. So yes, a bit of chat with a few other astronomers around the world about the mathematics involved and some signal to noise improvements. So yeah, been busy, and also been experimenting with different GRC combinations to look at Vela. And yeah, been suffering a little bit from the sun as well. It's getting into the back lobe because Vela and the sun are getting close together in RA. That's about it from me.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and I saw your paper on the Vela glitch. So that's all good stuff. Moving around the screen to the next one. Roger, you're next in line. You got anything happening at your end?
No, not really, I'm afraid. Probably a bit the same as last month. I've been busy, but not busy on radio and astronomy. Yeah, I keep walking past my dish down there and going, yes, I need to get that happening. But I've got to say, I do enjoy these meetings. It's keeping my enthusiasm up a little bit. So it will happen at some stage. But yeah, certainly, yeah, you guys have got some interesting stuff. And, Villa has always been one of my objects to look at. So I'd be interested in seeing your paper, really. Might spur me into action a bit more. But yeah, apart from that, not really much happening. Uh, Pretty bad weather here at the moment. It's cold, all that sort of stuff. But maybe next month. Sorry, no more than that at this stage.
Just
Yeah, I'll send you a copy.
Yep, sorry, right, Duncan.
I'll send you a copy of the paper when it comes out. And quite happy to supply the software and how it was put together.
Yeah, thank you. I'll get onto it. As I say, another
Yeah,
month or two, I reckon things will sort out a bit.
Yeah, what I need is some people that are spatially diverse around the planet. So the explanation is when Vela has a glitch, then you're waiting for somebody else to confirm the dish because we use very small apertures. So it'll be good to have other people who are looking at Vela at the same time to see if there's a coincidence change in the frequency of the pulsar.
Yep, sounds good. We'll get involved for sure. Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
was just going to ask Roger, remind me of your location.
At Rylstone, it's just north of Bathurst. So I'm north of Bathurst, down west of Newcastle, just on the western side of the Blue Mountains.
Right. Okay.
So
you'd be
reasonably radio quiet area. We're not far from the Wallamai National Park, which is basically the biggest park in the state, except for a couple out west. So yeah, it should be a reasonable spot. But of course, we're getting more mobile phone towers and all that sort of thing are popping up all the time. But it's not as bad as in the city.
Yes.
Well,
indeed. All right, thanks for that. And Joe, you're next on my screen. Have you got anything happening over your way?
No, I'm afraid a little bit like Roger. I have not been doing very much at all. I was actually up at the dish last weekend with Phil, and the only thing that I think I did was put up a little sign for there's a demonstration horn there, and put up a little sign for that. I do have a photograph somewhere, but I can't find it at the moment. So that's about the only thing I've been involved in, I'm afraid, for the past couple of months. I've been very, very quiet, but like Roger, I like these meetings. They tend to not let the enthusiasm level fall too far. So it's consequently I try to get to them all. But hopefully, when weather improves a little bit, I will continue with the. Oh, well, there's Phil's put it up. No, there I am putting the finishing touches to the. You can see the horn in the background and the main dish a little bit further back, and this thing's put up for general public viewing with hopefully a reasonable explanation of how the system works. That horn is a three-quarter size of the original horn that was used to detect hydrogen in the first place. So that's about as much as I've been doing, I'm afraid. Like I say, with the weather improves, hopefully I'll get back. I've got a 1.2 meter dish in the back garden, and it's sitting there with no electronics on it yet. We'll get that sorted out. And the other thing, Paul, about astronomy in the northern hemisphere, the northern reaches. You may not get much during the summer, but in the winter, you can as long as it's clear, you can observe from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So
Yes, yes.
you don't have to get up at night. So
Right, that's the other side of the equation, isn't it? It's getting
is.
dark at 3.
Yeah,
And
the other side of the equation also includes a lot of cloud coverage, of course. But
yes,
there
yeah.
you go. And that's all I have. Thanks for that, Paul.
All right, thanks, Joe. Yeah, my first teaching was in Oxford, in England, and we used to drive to school with the headlights on, and we would drive home with the headlights on, and you'd spend what little bit of daylight there was actually in the classroom, not see the sun at all for weeks on end.
Yeah, well, I was north from well, that photograph behind me is where I was from in Belfast, which is even further north, and it's amazing the difference it makes and the timing of how when the sun comes up and when it sets. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, well, part of my trip was a tour around the Highlands of Scotland, which I'd never been to before, and that took us all the way up to Liverpool and beyond, almost up to the top of mainland Scotland.
Yeah,
and you're a long, long way north there, and it's not quite the land of the midnight sun, but it's not far off. We didn't see a lot of darkness because we were traveling. We were off to bed at a reasonable time and then up early in the morning. But it was a bit of a shock coming back here and realizing it was getting dark by 5. All right, so Timothy Hoven is the last one on my screen. Tim, are you with us? No, there we are. There he is.
Hi there. Sorry, yes, I'm here today. I'm afraid I'm also one of the people who doesn't have a real lot to talk about. I have aspirations, and Andrew encourages me. But as yet, there is nothing to brag about, alas.
And what's your location, Tim?
I'm close to Andrew, across a river and behind a mountain or a range of large hills. So we're hoping that we can do some useful, separated work, to try and with a small amount of geographical separation. Which should be fun, but we haven't done anything yet.
Very good. So that's for everyone else. That's southern Tasmania. How far out of Hobart are you, Andrew?
I'm about 20 kilometres south of Hobart, so that's the capital. Right. Yeah, Tim's across the range, and yeah, it's good when you're kind of looking for small signals. You kind of want to have somebody nearby that can help you sort out interference as well. So that's kind of an interesting thing.
Well, it sounds like there's some potential there for getting some data to share in future meetings.
Yes, but I need to make some progress. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, you've got a mentor just around the corner. I'm sure Andrew will guide you in the right direction.
And Tim's actually got some experience in radio astronomy from his university days too.
Right.
I do. Yes, I'm a lapsed astronomer.
Very good. Well, that's everyone from this end, but I'm going to put my 2 pennies in now. Having been traveling, obviously, I've not got a lot to report, but I'm going to take one for the team and get up in time for a 6 a.m. Paper for the SARA Eastern Conference. So Jay was very kindly offered a spot in the SARA Eastern Conference, which Rich, I think it's is it August the 8th or something like that? Somewhere around
August, starts August 4th, so don't do it August 8th. You'll be late.
No, I'll not.
The notices will go out soon. And why we're talking about that, you can do online, so you guys can all do online and get up with Paul, and for $15, that's what we got. So it's a good time. We will put all the presentations on YouTube after the fact, but it's sort of a good time to do it. Be involved in the meetings during that.
Yep. Yes, talking of the date. So I've got 6 a.m. on the 7th for me, which will be I think it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon for you on the 6th, something like that. When I first put it in my diary, I did put my presentation at 6 a.m. on the 6th, and I think I would have been popping up at the wrong time somehow. But I did a recalculation of the time differences. I think it's 14 hours difference, something like that. I think your East Coast is 4 hours behind UTC, and we're 10 ahead, something like that.
It's East Coast is currently at 7:42 p.m.
Yep.
To give you a little calibration here.
Yeah. So that's the 14 hours. That's right. So 6 a.m. for me, then is 4 p.m. for the attendees at the conference. So now I sent an email around, and I've had some responses. Thank you very much. Andrew, you've got that shared drive. Just keep putting things in there. I'll dig out what I can and do a summary. Phil, I think I'll have a bit of a dig around in the Discord server. I think there are some materials there. I've got 30 minutes. So it'll be a quick grab. Len, I've got something from you. Whether you have any updates, possibly a couple of those screenshots with your data on might be quite good.
Sure.
So then Duncan and Roger and Tim, anybody else really, anything you can contribute. The plan is I want to do a map of Australia first to show where we are, because we're all tend to be concentrated in that southeast corner. One of the plans I have, and work keeps getting in the way. I keep saying I'm retiring, and then nothing, and then more work comes along. I'm just doing 2 weeks of full-time work at the moment, and it's getting in the way of other things. But the plan is to try and get in contact with some other astronomical societies around the place. And I know, Duncan, you've got a fairly active radio astronomy group in your South Australian Astronomical Society. Is that right?
That's
quite
correct,
a
yes.
group, yeah.
Yes.
So I thought I'd have a look in your website and dig out a few things. Duncan, if you've got anything else you could send me, just as a little summary of what's happening in your neck of the woods, that would be really useful.
Okay.
And then Roger, I don't know, are you involved with the New South Wales Astronomical Society?
Yeah, I certainly am. At the moment, there's not a lot going on there. We've sort of, I haven't actually been there for a couple of months. I think it's actually due next weekend. I might try and get there, but we haven't. Not a lot happening there.
Yeah, that was the impression I got. I had a look at the website, and I don't think I could find any reference to radio astronomy on their website.
No, I don't think there is at the moment. But anyway, there's certainly a few people, bit of a groundswell starting to happen there, but it's coming from a pretty low base. That's pretty well orientated towards optical astronomy. Always has been, really. But anyway, we might be able to change that. So we'll see how it goes.
It's interesting because I was looking at the historical background to radio astronomy in Australia, and for a long, long time, it was all concentrated in New South Wales. And then gradually it spread out. So it's interesting that the Astronomical Society doesn't have a significant presence in radio astronomy. Roger, if you've got anything that you can send me, just on the email, and I'll do a summary of that.
Sure. 8th was it? 8th of So
it's-
when's your?
For me, it's 6 a.m. on the 7th of August. So I'd need something really by the end of July. If for
Yeah,
anybody,
okay.
any can send me stuff. End of July, that gives me a little bit of time, and we're nearly to the end of July. It's a bit scary how quickly that conference is coming round. So I thought I'd do the geographical location. Where are we? If it was the other way around and people were talking about places in America, I'd need a map. I need to be shown where these places are. So I'm thinking, well, we'll start with that. Where are we? And then a little bit of some of the historical background, because there have been some significant developments in radio astronomy which are from Australia, very significant, particularly post World War II, when a lot of the army surplus radar gear got co-opted into radio astronomy and got pointed at the sky. I think they were concerned, where are these emissions coming from? Are they coming from the sun? And that led into various other things. And what's interesting, I found, is a lot of women have been involved in that area. Very, very significant contributions. It's not a male-only preserve, even though this room. We've got Helen, but everything, it tends to be male-dominated. But there are some very, very significant contributions. So I thought I'd touch on a couple of those. And Groth Reba is significant, obviously, in all of that, because he ended up in Tasmania. And there is a Groth Reba museum. Andrew, have you been there? Or Tim, have you been to that location?
Yep, very much so. Yep. And I'm lucky enough to have worked a bit with Grote back in the day.
Right. Wow. Well, that's really something. Yes, I mean, he started out in America. I think he got a bit frustrated with trying to get funding and so on, and ended up coming to the quieter skies of the Southern Hemisphere, settled in Tasmania, and spent, I think, was it 40 or more years he was in Tasmania. And there is now a museum there with materials and so on. Again, one day I'll get down to Tasmania and have a bit of a wander around there. That should be quite something. So, so a little bit of significant events. There was the one in Sydney, which was one of the first using the sea as an interferometer. So it was built on a cliff top. So the antenna on the cliff top, and then the sea was offering the reflection. So it actually, the aperture was way bigger than the actual receiver itself. And
it's a Lloyd's mirror. It's a Lloyd's mirror interferometer.
Yep.
It's at Dover Heights on the cliffs there.
Yep.
And it actually came out, that work came out of anti-submarine work, I think, using looking at the phase of radio signals bouncing off the sea and any object that was above the sea, sitting on the ocean.
Yes. And I was in that neck of the woods in Sydney last year, and I forgot all about Dover Heights. I was going to go and have a look. There is a replica antenna there, not the original one, but a replica, and a plaque and so on commemorating the work that was done there. So radio astronomy was a big thing post World War II in Australia.
There's a couple of other sites. There's one site on a reservoir whose name escapes me in Western Sydney, and then there's Fleurs, and Fleurs is now, I think, part of the second airport there, and they had a huge amount of low frequency cross work there, where crossed antennas as per Mills.
We actually have one of the old Fleurs. Sorry, we have one of the old Fleurs dishes at Wirrana. That's one thing the Astronomical Society has got. And as far as I know, I don't think there's many others surviving. There used to be a couple of them up in the Hunter Valley. They got distributed around a bit, but as far as I know, there is one at the Mount Stromlo Observatory that got repurposed for something. I can't remember what it was, but they changed the dish on it. But the actual mechanism is one of the Fleur's dishes. But the dish that we've got at near here at Wirran is actually relatively intact. As I say, it's one of the original Fleur's dishes. So we still have the feed horn and a couple of. It's not actually a feed horn; it's a dipole that's on the end of a waveguide, and the receiver unit is actually at the bottom of the waveguide at the base of the dish. So really quite an interesting setup. And it's got a couple of arrangements on it. I'm pretty sure it was originally 1420 megahertz, but it's got another antenna attached to the side of it, which I think they were using for 400 as well.
Yeah,
So,
they
yeah,
made it.
maybe
There was at least 6 fairly large diameter dishes at Fleur's, and one of those is at Marsfield in Sydney. I think it's still there, at CSIRO. That made a hydrogen line mapping of the southern sky.
Fleur's, how do you spell that? F-L-E-U-R-S?
Yes, correct.
The French. Yep. Okay.
All
right.
The one on the reservoir was did a lot of work on the sun, and was actually using the technique that would become aperture synthesis. They were adding up all the responses of the fringe patterns to give you an idea, and you can see the edge brightening on the distribution of the energy across the sun. You can see the edge brightening of the radio.
Very good. Yeah. So I'll grab a few things. If anybody's got anything, just send me on the email. I'll just make a summary out of it, whether it's about the historical stuff or whether it's about your setup and observations. And I'll make that summary, so it'll be the geographical, historical, and then a little bit about this group, our end of this group, and what we have, what's developing. Whether it's real data or whether, in the case of our dish fill, whether it's the prospect that this will be providing Southern Hemisphere data in the not too distant future. So that's the plan for the 30-minute. Then I'll go back to bed. I think 6 a.m. is a bit early. Rich, that's it from this end. I'm sorry.
Oh, just a question, maybe to Duncan or others. The Kalgoorlie radioheliograph, that's more or less decommissioned now. It hasn't been operating for a number of years, but of course that has quite a few dishes. And I'm wondering if that's still intact and maybe something amateurs might be interested in. I don't know what the future of that is, but
the heliograph's got well and truly gone. A lot of the dishes have been removed.
Right.
There is, I believe there is still, well, I haven't been there for years, but the last time I was there were a few. Basically, the radioheliograph was a bunch of book antennas and dishes on a inner circle 1 mile, and it was all the signals were amplified and brought back over twin, I think, from each of these antennas to a central point, and it was primarily a solar instrument, but it did go off and do some galactic stuff. I remember. Sorry, there's a couple of names in Sydney: Mills, Bolton, Pawsey, and Christensen are probably the major drivers of post-World War II radio astronomy.
And
Who's
Bruce
the fourth
Lee.
one? Mills, Bolton,
And
Mills,
Pawsey,
Bolton, Pawsey, and
Christensen.
Christian.
No, Christensen
Bruce,
was.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say Bruce Lee was also instrumental at Dover in particular, but also at Parkes. And yeah, I met him in the 80s, and he was still active then. But yeah, definitely Bolton and Pawsey. Tappy Bowen was the head of radiophysics at the time.
Bowen, yeah, that's right.
there's a book called Radar: The Invention That Changed the World. I haven't got a copy anymore, but that's really a good history of how the evolution of radio and radar went along pre-World War II, especially with the development of solid state detectors. Like we think that solid state detectors are sort of transistor type things, but they had pretty good quality germanium, I think, diodes for RF detectors in the early part of the Second World War. So there's quite a bit of solid state stuff going on.
Mm.
But it's a really interesting thing. And the radio astronomy came up when, and it was a serious business for people in England looking east, early warning radar. And the sun was fairly active and left some bursts out, and that caused quite a bit of a flurry in the English defence. It's quite a well-known incident because it looked like incoming returns from a large bomber stream.
Mm.
Nothing turned up.
Yep.
That was what the sun did. So there's lots of interesting things about how people did stuff, especially with the characters. Taffy Bowen got into a serious amount of trouble when he was in America and upset a few people because he was pretty direct. And that was to do with H2S, the radar there, and the British development and the American development of it. Anyway, I better stop prattling on.
Well, there's certainly plenty of stories in that area, so I'll need to do a quick summary within my 30-minute slot that I've got. But it might be something that we develop up into a bigger historical overview for a future conference, Rich. So over to the American side, we're a bit light on, but Rich, if you want to lead the way.
Okay, well, we got Helen and Richard still on. So Helen, you got anything going on?
No, I've had some health issues these last 3 weeks, which is why I haven't been with you, but we're working. And but I am looking forward to the conference here in a couple of weeks. That would be great.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. I think we have over 50 people showing up physically, so it's going to be a pretty.
That's a nice
I
crowd.
think since the pandemic, it's the biggest conference we've had.
Mm.
Richard Flagg.
Yeah, I'd like to express my appreciation for everybody's stories and progress on what they're working at. This is one of the few events every month that I really look forward to, particularly to hear about the progress from Phil on the 30-foot dish. And Andrew, I was wondering a little bit about the 142 megahertz setup that you have for solar work. Some of our folks have expressed that they can't put up a full 20 megahertz dipole, and a few of us have been thinking about maybe moving up in frequency and offering an option. Can you tell me about what you're using for an antenna and what the sky background temperature is on 2 meters?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, I'm just using a commercial Yagi. They're pretty relatively cheap, lightweight, easy to install. I ended up getting a 10-element one, which is probably a little bit of an overkill because I've been doing some auroral work on that and wanted a narrow beam, but 5-element would be fine. Galactic, emission is quite strong, and solar as well at sort of those frequencies. And the good thing about 142, which is the 2-meter amateur band, is that there's plenty of amateur antennas. The Yagi's fairly narrow band, of course, so it's only about 10% of the center frequency. But with an SDR, I'm using on that one. I'm actually using essentially one of the simplest SDRs, which is an RTL SDR, and good old Radio Sky software, and pretty straightforward to get going. In one of the earlier presentations, I showed a quiet day curve that I got off the antenna, and I haven't calibrated in terms of sky brightness temperature yet. That's part of that calibrator I'm working on, but I can certainly see a good diurnal variation and see the galactic anticenter. So I'm actually still seeing sky noise down at when the Milky Way is well, the center of the galaxy is at my nadir. So it's a pretty reasonably sensitive system, and yeah, you could do some sky mapping with that. In fact, that's kind of takes me back to my uni days when we had I think it was a third year university project, which was essentially doing that sort of thing. Yeah, quite easy to set up.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks.
That's about all I've got, Rich.
All right, thanks.
I'm just going to say that you can get some calibration of 137 megahertz satellites if you're doing interferometry down there.
Okay, thanks, Duncan.
Okay.
That's an interesting point, because one thing that I've looked at are some of the satellites and use satellites to try and get an idea of the beam pattern, at least to compare with theoretical calculations. So yeah, kind of interesting.
There is sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Duncan. I keep jumping in, but go ahead.
Yeah, there was Marcus Leach, and I've forgotten the gentleman's name. Worked a system where you can have 2 SDRs plus a piece of passive gear, and basically run an interferometer and get nice fringes. Ken Tapling was it? Tapping or Tapling? I can't. Was the guy, and yeah, somebody else knows that. Okay.
All right. Is that it? Okay, a few other things. We are having the elections going to be sent out probably this Sunday, the election ballot. There's only a few people on the ballot right now, but go ahead and vote and send it back to the treasurer. His email will be on the ballot. Also, if you're going to invite other groups, my recommendation is you send them the link to the SARA radio, the Drake's Lounge Australia playlist in the SARA YouTube channel.
Yep.
That way they can catch up on all this, and plus the rest of the YouTube channel, and then obviously the link to the SARA email or SARA website. Okay, that's all I got, Paul.
Okay, that's everything from this end. We covered quite a lot of ground there in the hour that we just had. But thank you to everybody. As I say, if you've got anything at all to contribute towards that 30-minute paper for the Eastern Conference, just either send a link to where it's stored, or just send me something in an email, and I'll summarize it all up, and that'll be the 30-minute paper. And Rich, one day perhaps I might even get over and attend one of these conferences in person. But a bit of a challenge at the moment, financially, and finding the time to do it as well.
Yeah, they're fun to go to, but they are you have to be motivated and financially able to make them. So
Yep.
Can't wait to see you, Paul.
Yep. One day.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Right. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Rich. And we'll reconvene in a month's time. I'll send out the usual reminder beforehand.
Thank you.
Okay. See you later.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye.